It was the year of fire.
The year of destruction.
The year we took back what was ours.
It was the year of rebirth.
The year of great sadness. The year of pain.
And a year of joy.
It was a new age. It was the end of history.
It was the year everything changed.
The year is 2261. The place, Babylon 5.
Hello and welcome to Chatz, a television podcast, Season 6, Chatzylon 5. My name's Alan, and I can feel you, you know? The real Magellan, beating at the inside of your skull, screaming to get out,
Oh my god.
to know what's going on.
No.
For a long time, I've been debating what to do when this day came. Do I let you know what happened to you, or do I leave you like this, trapped in a prison of meat and flesh and bone, forever? I'm Joe. I co-host. You do a really good comedy scream. Can I say that?
I do? That was it?
Yeah, that was so good. I love it.
Oh,
It's like
thanks,
very
man.
charming.
Thank you. I was meant to be sort of deeply terrified, Lovecraftian realization that life is small and it's but dust for the universe.
You must have really
But I
liked
guess
these
that's
episodes.
funny.
You must have loved these episodes of B5 then, right?
Oh, I got scared the time of my life. That's the song I ended up singing.
Yeah.
Oh
whoa.
man, they were intense, huh?
Yeah. They weren't even camping and they were intense.
And I never felt this way.
You're not gonna
before.
cackle at that? You're not gonna...
Yes, I swear.
No. Okay.
It's the truth. And I owe it all to you.
Wow.
All right. Well, that's the show, huh?
Yeah, that's really what we have here.
We had a little bit of jokes, a little singing. It was our variety hour that lasted
Yeah.
5 minutes, and
Uh-huh.
now it's done. Now we can start our second show, which is a podcast where we talk about Babylon 5, Alan.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How many episodes do we watch a week?
Well, that's a great question. I hope you keep asking really good questions
I will.
like that. 2 is the answer.
Oh. Good answer. Like
Do you have any more questions?
Which two did we watch this week?
Oh, what another great question. We watched Season 4, Episode 17, The Face of the Enemy, and Season 4, Episode 18, Intersections in Real Time. Yeah.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure, go ahead.
Who wrote, directed, and when did the first one air? And when did it take place in the chronology?
Well,
I have a lot of
that's
questions.
Multiple
Sorry.
questions.
Yeah.
Episode 17 was written by J. Michael Straczynski. It was directed by Michael Vehar. It aired June 9th, 1997, and it takes place from October 17th to the 22nd of 2261. Now, Alan, I have a question for you.
Whoa, flipping the script. Sure, go for it.
Yeah, what happened in this episode?
Dude, here's the thing. In this episode, Garibaldi is faced with the decision of whether or not to betray Sheridan. Franklin and Lita arrive on Mars with their cargo of frozen telepaths. Magellan, here's my thing about this episode, because I'm gonna reflip the script and talk about my opinion on it.
Okay.
I watched the first half 24 hours ago, and it's pretty up and down. I mean, we open on like a nice monologue. We're getting like Sheridan stuff. We're getting the pretty low level plots, and then basically from the moment that Lita talks to Franklin about the bloodhounds, this episode is off to the races.
yeah.
And my questions of what's the deal with Garibaldi, what's the deal with the telepaths, what's up with Psychor, how are they going to take care of Edgar's, all of that is handled in like 20 minutes. It's bonkers. And I was really scared of all of this. I think directorially, Vehar's doing a lot of great work with both camera work and just framing of shots. And like, shout outs to everybody working on this show at this point for cramming in so much juicy plot in such a tight time frame. It's really amazing work.
Yeah. This episode, I was telling you via text, parts of it feel like a really great BioWare video game.
Mm-hmm.
like you've reached not the end of the game, but you've reached the climax point after which everything is like, oh god, here we go. I mean, I'm directly comparing it, I guess, in my mind to Knights of the Old Republic. So if you haven't played Knights of the Old Republic, the Star Wars game, just sort of go la 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 for a second.
Yeah.
But the part where Garibaldi and Bester and all that, they're in the car, and Bester's like, remember all this crazy stuff? Reminded me of in
The
Knights
Revan
of the
reveal?
Old Republic, yeah, when you find out that you've been Darth Revan the whole time. You didn't even know. And then you go back and they're like dead, and you're like, oh my god, what's going on?
Oh my god.
That's, oh my god. That's how this episode felt.
Right, because basically from that point onward, it feels like the season is going to be, like you said, like a video game where people are just going to be fighting now, and like the whole status quo is different. Like in any other moment in the show, Ivanova being like, "We're going to shoot Garibaldi on sight," I would have been like, "Oh my god!" But here I'm like, you know, she's not wrong. She's not like bad for saying that.
Marcus goes, Susan.
Yeah. Oh my god, Susan, I've never loved you more than this.
Susan.
And it's amazing that we have like this pair. We just got such a good pair of episodes this week, really. Like between Garibaldi's reveal and then Sheridan's whole situation, this is a pair of episodes that's definitely about going into people's heads and questioning what is real and why things are real and the nature of truth and all that stuff. It's really like playing in the space of McCarthyism and every torture movie and television show of history, and like it's sort of a best of all of those things, a bester of all those things, if you will.
I will. Where do you want to start?
We can talk about the boring stuff first, the sort of
Yes.
pre-Garibaldi situation. And Sheridan is really grumpy at the beginning, talking about why his foes are refusing to surrender. He has a comms conversation with them where we actually get the return of Mackie. And this is an iconic scene in Babylon 5.
Mackie is what it is, what it is, what it does, what it is.
You could have done Return of the Mac and been cool, but you instead did a Macklemore quote, and you had it's right there. You had the cool one. Return of the Mackie. That's it. You did it. But you were like, no, piss. That's what I'm gonna reference. You fool. Nothing says more about our dynamic than the fact that I'm actually really mad at Magellan for quoting Macklemore. Mackie's back, and this is iconic because it's the first time that two people of color on Babylon 5 are talking to each other.
Yep,
Like,
I think
whoa, there's
you're
two
right.
black guys talking to each other. This is crazy.
Wow, I think you're right.
It's a bummer, but it's where we're at.
Oh my god, it's season 4, episode 17.
And Mackie's like, dude, chill. And he's like, okay, you know what? You're right, Mackie. I'll work with Sheridan, and I'll stop resisting him. He has a reunion with this guy, and he's like, if you refuse me, you'll be as big of an idiot as you were when you were in the academy. Which is ironic because immediately he gets a message from Garibaldi that is the most clear lie ever.
So I can't believe that Sheridan fell for that.
I said that exact phrase like 7 times through both of these episodes. It's kind of amazing. Between this and like the stuff in the second episode where it's like, Sheridan, you don't eat the sandwich, you stupid man. Ugh.
Yeah.
So Garibaldi's basically like, dude, your dad is being captured, and you got to come to Mars, and you got to meet me in this like Matrix 2 fight like nightclub. And everyone's like, Sheridan, that's clearly a trap. Sheridan, what are you doing? And he's like, Ivanova, take the keys. I'm going to Mars. You fool.
I also thought that the Agamemnon was going to be some sort of ruse or something. Didn't it feel sort of suspicious that his old ship shows up out of nowhere?
Oh, yeah.
And is like, hey, man, we're cool.
It's
I
me.
thought that was going to be some kind of like Trojan horse scheme or something.
I think it did seem like that because it's so convenient, but it might just be like we are finding things to relate directly back to Sheridan, including like his old ship is back and all that.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, that's so like Garibaldi's in a dark room, half his face is illuminated, and he's like, "Hey, I know that we hate each other, and I've been screaming at you and calling you the return of God or whatever.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to help you." I don't know. It reeked of a setup.
It's because Sheridan has literally been like walked into a setup and known about it before. The Zahadum thing is like, this is clearly a setup, and I'm not falling for it. And this is like, dude. You just really?
But he also went to Zahadum, yeah.
Yeah, well, he went to Zadum, but he did it with the plan of like, I know that these guys are lying, and I'm not planning to listen to them.
I see. Yeah, I got you.
You know, so basically, the rest of the episode takes place on Mars. We get Franklin introducing Lita to number one, and they have some like girl pettiness. It's like it makes sense because she's like, I hate telepaths. It's not like I hate that you're a woman. It's like I hate telepaths, and you're one of them, and thusly you're a bad person. Lita has this very, very dire conversation with Franklin that kind of tilts the tone of this season from pretty dark to like all the way dark, like advanced darkness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She explains to him that the Psi Corps is using these things on Mars now called the Bloodhounds, which are basically telepaths who get to bypass due process and scan anyone who's suspected of being a rebel. Just anyone for fun. They get to scan them. They get to go deep scan. They can break your brain. It's fine. It's legal because we live in a fascist nightmare. She also warns him that it seems like telepaths and mundanes is what we're calling non-telepaths, I guess. Mm. The conflict between them is building and building, and that they're probably going to go to war soon. And then what I like is that Franklin is like, we have a big plot going on. Can we have like one more season to do that? We don't have time, Lita. Like we need. That's a whole thing you're talking about.
Let's figure this out after we take Earth.
Yeah, basically, like we'll definitely take care of that as soon as Clark is done. We'll help you. We'll figure it out. We'll work together. It'll be fine for sure.
Yeah, we can only sustain so many different huge world-shattering events at once.
Yeah, but it really does read like that. And then they also get a message from Sheridan being like, "You're solo. Bye. You're screwed." Then we get Sheridan meeting Garibaldi in this bar, and this scene is one of the strangest scenes of this pair of episodes, full of strange scenes. This bar is playing like old school rock music, like 90s, like alt rock.
I feel like we walked into the Bronze or something.
Totally, and which is funny if you. I mean, I don't want to I'm not going to CinemaSins this, but it's 2261.
CinemaSins it.
I won't be as cynical, but like cynical. It's 2261. Why are we listening to music that sounds like it's from the 90s? Like, how old school is that? Have you ever been in a bar and you heard music from 80 years ago?
Right.
That's what that feels like, is if you went into like a nightclub and they were playing ragtime music and you're like, huh, okay. Things get really fucky here because Garibaldi's like, it's your dad. They tracked him through his medicine. They're coming for you. And he's like, oh no. And then he's like, what do I do? And he's like, you already did it. Yoink. Puts a tranquilizer in Sheridan's hand. And then things get really super weird because Sheridan stumbles around the bar and everyone's like, whoa, dude, you're tripping. And they could have just cut right there and been like, and then he got captured. But then there's like another minute where he goes like sicko mode and starts punching everyone in the bar.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It went a lot longer than I thought it would.
It really does. And it's like, it's basically supposed to be like everyone in the bar knew about this, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Sheridan. Like, how would he get anywhere in public without people recognizing him?
The implication I got is that like everyone who was posing as patrons of the bar were actually working for Clark.
I see.
Yeah.
That makes more sense, including Garibaldi in a way. We don't see Sheridan for the rest of the episode, although we do see that he's like face flat on a like cold floor, and you're like, what's going on there? And they reveal that next episode. Mm-hmm. And then here we go. The rest of the episode is the Garibaldi stuff, which is the meat and potatoes of this episode.
Yeah. So let's dig into that. Yeah.
Let's crunch into it. He goes to Edgar's and he's like, hey man, you promised me you would finally tell me the truth. What's the real truth? Edgar's the freaking like, again, speaking of like questionable decisions, I guess Garibaldi has earned it, but like you really shouldn't tell someone this stuff, dude. You really like shouldn't ever say it out loud.
Right. Only Wade should know this because Wade is clearly like a robot man or something.
He's precious and good. Your guess of Wade being some sort of like telepath or something was good, but seemed a little off. But I think the guess I had last week was like 90% of the way there.
Yeah, you were scary close to the truth.
I was dummy close. Basically, Edgar's is like, yeah, the thing we're going to do with the telepaths is we're going to put a virus into the air that can only be cured with an antidote that we have access to. If they don't take it every day, they die. We're turning them into slaves. And he's like,
I think this was a guess that I made when we originally saw the like, oh, there's a cure for telepaths. Didn't I say like it is actually going to kill them or something?
Yes.
So we both got to be right.
Yeah, that's the goal. End of the day is being right. He's like, Garibaldi's like, that's really nasty of you, and he's like, oh well, you helped us do it, thanks, bud. Edgar's leaves. Lise overhears all this from behind a wall and gets the fuck out of Dodge. Lise is the only one who comes out of these episodes okay, because she just dips.
Is she alive? I guess we assume.
Yeah, because the news report at the end says they don't know where she went.
Yeah,
so she's probably fine.
I wonder where that's gonna go. That felt super cheesy. That there's just like a wall that she can hide behind in that room and learn all the secret plans.
Yeah, there's no security in Edgar's house situation at all. Like,
yeah, and it's like his room where his evil plans happen.
Yeah,
that didn't feel believable.
And you were mentioning that, like, I do agree somewhat that his like fears are very much justified. This whole like telepaths, if we don't subjugate them or control them in some way, are going to take over. Homo superior always takes precedence over Homo sapiens, which is like just line for line X-Men.
Yeah, right.
They just did X-Men.
Yeah. What did you think of all this stuff? Because I think I'm leaving this Edgar's plot feeling like he so far is the most understandable Babylon 5 villain.
Yeah.
He's like the guy that I love villains like this where you can sort of see the sanity within the insanity of what they're doing. Like obviously Garibaldi summing it all up and saying like, okay, so you want to create a slave race of telepaths. Awful, horrible.
Yeah.
Genocidal. We don't need to shy away from calling it that because that's what it is. But there is some like logic to the fear of you have these human beings who can invade people's minds without a trace, who can with their minds if they want to, as Lita was saying, like she describes some of the horrific things that the Bloodhounds did. They planted nightmares in that guy's mind, and he's like screaming about these nightmares in some asylum on some asteroid or something for the rest of his life. And no doubt that's terrifying if you know that there are people that can do that. And the only thing that's really holding them in place is like rules.
Yeah.
How long are those gonna last? So Edgar's methods are horrific, and at the same time you can see how like a sane person becomes him.
Right. Through situation and through circumstance and through like his financial power, he's the person who can do this kind of thing. Like my initial thought was like if Edgar's wasn't like a rich billionaire or whatever, like megacorp owner, maybe he would be a little more empathetic, but like he wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff if he wasn't that. So it kind of requires him to be, you know, upper class. But I think it's an easy metaphor to call like telepaths a sort of minority or like a disadvantaged minority, but like they're an advantaged minority, and it gets into the same problems that like when you talk about X-Men, where people are like, and I'm kind of cribbing this whole thematic idea from various X-Men discussions we've heard over the years, specifically the Jane Miles Explain the X-Men podcast, where every time someone's like, oh, mutants equal minorities, it's like, no, because minorities can't shoot lasers out of their eyes, you guys. Like, that metaphor is really fraught, actually. And if we worry that, like, the disadvantaged people are going to murder us, then, like, your metaphor is just fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
So I think what works better is, like, they are born with a power that we don't have. And in a way, they do need to be controlled and limited in a way. And I don't see a good answer for how to control them.
Right, exactly. And Lita sort of says it best, like, there is a war coming. You can't really avoid this.
Yeah.
Because sooner or later, either we see both sides of how this war can form. Either you have people like Edgar's who think we need to eliminate telepaths or subjugate them or something. Or you have people like Bester who genuinely thinks that telepaths should rule the world.
Right.
And are a superior race.
And you have people leading the charge on both sides, and it's like, yeah, well, these people are going to fight each other. They're not.
Yeah.
There's no reaching across the aisle. You fundamentally cannot.
It's interesting, that we talk about X-Men, because I think whenever I've encountered this idea of there being a homo superior in X-Men, my take has always been like, the X-Men, those are the good guys. Come on. Like, we don't need to create rules or build giant robots that can hunt them down or whatever. That's crazy. But in this, when the homo superior are not cast as the like renegade outcasts that are nice to everybody, but are cast as like the Gestapo, it's a different picture of what that could look like. And I think it makes me think about it differently, and in terms that I think are closer to how it might strike me in real life. I think I'm still of the opinion like, Edgar's, you are doing some really insane stuff that is like damaging to society. But then what do we do? Like you said, what's the answer? There's not really an easy way to approach this.
Right. And even X-Men obviously is a series that never like fully solves this problem, because they come up with solutions like, oh, we'll make sure they live alone and they can't live with us. And that's unfair if you've lived your entire life with humans and suddenly the government tells you can't be around people and you can't be around normals anymore.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to control your stuff. Or you need a Charles Xavier who's like, I'm going to teach you how to function in society despite your abilities.
Yeah. It's sort of, some of the things about the Psy-Corps remind me of like the Jedi. The idea
for sure.
of we take people with these powers when they're very young and bring them into our order and train them under our rules.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about how, like, Star Wars really idealizes this idea of people having superpowers as like, hey, look, nearly all of them are good. And yeah, sometimes you get like a bad guy or two bad guys who use their force powers for bad. But overall, like, it works if we just have these academies where we train people to be responsible force users. They turn out like, wise old guys with beards.
Right.
And Babylon 5 presents us with I think, again, like a more realistic understanding of what would happen if you took a bunch of superhumans and put them in a superhuman school and trained them to be superhuman cops. You'd end up with some superhumans who thought that they probably should just run the show.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I almost think that maybe Babylon 5's telepaths could use an Xavier, like a person who says, I know your powers are amazing and they make you different, but they don't make you better and you need to learn to humble yourselves. Like they need a figure like that, because Bester absolutely is not that. Bester is fully Magneto, like, we deserve what we've been given. We've been punished for long enough. Look what they're trying to do to us. I have justification for this.
Yeah, and I'd always thought of Lita as someone who, like, is playing by the rules and understands that the rules are important. But the reason that she's that way is because she wasn't that way before. She was involved in a horrific act of the misuse of her telepathic powers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's also not as clean cut as saying like there are people in Babylon 5 who believe in the rules of the Psy-Corps, because one of the people who I thought of as believing in the rules believes them because she broke them.
Right. She's not firmly on like one side of it. Like she acknowledges that they're bad, but she still, last episode puts a guy to sleep without asking him and still like uses her powers to hurt people.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most important things if they're going to tackle this next season is show me some telepaths who are living normal lives and who aren't necessarily bad eggs, or who aren't using their powers for bad, because like I think I was telling you earlier, like the Lita stuff where she is, because of the nature of her birth and her powers, she just can't find work. And because she isn't allowing herself to work under Psy-Corps, it's like, well, I guess I'm just SOL. Like I can't be with the regulars because everyone knows I'm a telepath, but I can't be with Psy-Corps because I don't want to work for the bad guys. Like, damned if you do, damned if you don't, sort of thing. So I think more characters and stories like that is how we come to like empathize with the telepath cause. But right now it's like we are watching two horrible makers and shakers fight each other. And Garibaldi's the ultimate pawn because after Edgar's leaves, he yanks a tooth out of his mouth, which is very like cool 70s like torture movie thing. And inside of the tooth is like a little jingle jangle where he calls Bester over. He apparently either his eyes film everything he sees, or this is just a visual metaphor for him conveying things to Bester. But we see like a first person black and white shot of him in the room with Edgar's like explaining the plan to him.
Mm-hmm.
And Bester is like, oh, beautiful. This is awesome. I'm so happy that you finally showed me all of this. He says, because you have prevented a new Holocaust, which is like, wow, big. You're just saying it, right? Thanks, guys. You're doing it. I'll allow you to go free.
He's not wrong.
No, of course not. It's just that the name drop is like important.
Yeah.
Because you have prevented a new Holocaust, I'm going to let you go. I need to figure out what to do with you. But for now, here's what happened to you. I'm going to explain it. And we get the full explanation. I think this kind of solidified to me that the Psi Corps are maybe more of an intimidating threat than even the Shadows. Because when the Shadows were trying to adjust, this is basically the story, is when the Shadows were trying to adjust Garibaldi, what is the exact order of operations here? I found this kind of complicated.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. Like, ultimately, Bester's plan has a level of narrative convenience baked into it that you just have to accept.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed to be that the idea was the Shadows, first of all, had infiltrated the Psi Corps on some level. And were working with Clark and with the Psi Corps to arrange for him to have taken over Earth. Maybe they weren't working with Bester, though. It seems like Bester didn't like the Shadows or was suspicious of them or something. It's kind of hard to understand where Bester is in the hierarchy of Psi Corps. Maybe he's kind of like off in his own super cop world and isn't really part of the chain of command in a way that we'd understand. But he got word, I guess, that the Shadows captured Garibaldi.
Yep.
Because the idea is like, okay, Sheridan is coming to Zahadum. We're going to either try to turn him or kill him. If we kill him, someone else is going to take control of Babylon 5. And we want it to be someone who can be friendly to us. And I guess they thought that Garibaldi was like the easiest person to pick off and do that to. So they capture him, but then Bester intercepts it. And he's like, I'm actually going to take Garibaldi and program him for my own purposes instead of what the Shadows want to do. And then he decides, I guess at this point it's kind of uncertain exactly what Bester knew, but it seems like he knew something about Edgar's being involved in a plot against the Psi Corps and against telepaths. Yeah,
I understood it as he suspected that and he needed confirmation and like evidence.
Yeah. So, and he was like, oh, something that is kind of interesting about what comes out of Bester's understanding of things is he says it seemed like the Shadows were the ones providing Edgar's with the technology that he needed to eliminate telepaths. So they were playing both sides of the conflict. They're empowering telepaths through Clark, and then they're empowering the other side through Edgar's to engineer this like telepath civil war on Earth.
Right. It's this sort of big picture reveal that like the Psi Corps obviously used the Shadow stuff to manipulate Garibaldi to like turn the tides, but at the end of the day, even though the Shadows are like technically doing this all posthumously, they like set all of this into motion.
Yeah.
Like none of this would have happened at the speed and the fervor that it's happening if it weren't for the Shadows helping out, which is like a big move.
And it's cool that like the Shadows are no longer the force that we're trying to destroy, but it still feels like everything bad is a result of things that they did and we're dealing with the after effects.
100%.
And even you could argue the Vorlons are to blame because the Vorlons are the ones who implanted telepathy in humanity to begin with.
Right. Yep.
And probably if you think about Vorlons as being into rigid hierarchy and order, they probably wouldn't have minded a version of humanity where like telepaths are a superior caste who are ruling over everybody else.
Right. Isn't it less conflict if the stronger race just wins? Like that could be their sort of justification.
Yeah,
is like,
that feels like that could be just a Vorlon thing. I mean, their close envoy or whatever you want to say about Lita, she's a telepath, right?
Why would they choose her if not?
Yeah. So Bester's like, I know something's going on with Edgar's, so I'm going to get Garibaldi. And the creepy part of this is when Bester's looming over Garibaldi, and the Psychor guy's like, okay, you want to do like a full reprogram and make him like, give him an accent or something? And Bester's like, whoa, whoa. No, he's already a jerk.
Yeah.
Let's just make him more of a jerk.
This was like kind of the core of my prediction was like, it's not that they made him control where they can, or that they can flip a switch whenever they want it, or it's not that they completely manipulated him. It's more like they turned a single knob in one direction and then let fate take its course, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah,
because all they did was make him, like I said, like a little bit doubtful of Sheridan's whole situation.
And something that I didn't fully get about Bester's plan is he's like, yeah, then you quit, which I didn't even expect.
Right.
So like, what was your scheme, dude? It seems like the most important part of Bester's plan to get Garibaldi to work for Edgar's just sort of happened by serendipity. I don't really get what he was expecting would happen. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it was a question for him of like, if I reprogram him to do exactly what I want and guarantee it, he might get caught, he might be suspicious, he might get brain scanned and someone will realize something. But the way this works is like, I just have to believe in the way that I've manipulated people that it works, and then no matter what happens, he can't get caught because he doesn't even know that he's being manipulated.
I know, but I just don't know how Bester planned to get him to work for Edgar's.
Right.
Because it doesn't seem like... It seemed like Edgar's guys kind of found Garibaldi on their own, you know?
Yeah.
So that part of it doesn't make complete
Well, I wonder
sense to me.
if it's because, they found him because he went on the news and said Sheridan sucks. I'm like, I don't believe in the cause of Babylon 5 anymore.
I see. True.
And
That's true.
also he has the lease connection, which directly puts him in line with Edgar's to work. Like, that's why he said yes.
It didn't seem like Bester brought Lise up, though.
But he might have known about it. The ultimate answer is like, this is some like 8-dimensional chess that the writers are like getting to make this work.
Yeah.
But I agree that it's a little bit out there.
It's like a little convenient.
Yeah.
But Bester sells it.
Yes.
Finally, he's scary.
Yeah, finally the like villainous scary
he's
Bester.
Terrifying.
And it turns out it's just because he knows things. Walter Koenig brings a lot to this whole scene where he's just like explaining like, yeah, and then I kind of let fate work itself out and you did all of the work. And then while he's explaining this, we're getting some real life stuff, or what's happening in real time, which is that Edgar's and Wade are fucking brutally killed by Psychor people. Instantly. It's like, nope, done. Killed him.
So yeah, I was really starting to like Wade a lot too.
Yeah, Wade was kind of getting to like Lou Welch levels of like, this guy doesn't matter, but I love him.
Yeah.
Alas.
You gotta watch out, Mr. Garibaldi. You're dealing with tough stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's what he sounds like.
He does have an accent, but it's,
That's what he sounds like to me.
For sure.
I studied literature. Dostoevsky's my favorite book. And that's a guy.
That's a real guy.
That's a dude. That's not even a book. That's how much I know it.
We, again, just serious things happening. They're found dead. Ivanova is like, hey, Garibaldi's like out and about, and he betrayed Sheridan. And she's like, cool. Hey, Marcus, if he tries to get on the ship, shoot on sight. And then, yeah, Marcus is like, oh, Susan.
I'm really into Ivanova being in charge of the fleet.
Me too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
She deserves it. This is it's sad that this is the way that she gets the power that she deserved, but I mean, we're here. So yeah. And then just the final nail in the coffin, the episode ends with a really sad ISN report that's like, the coward villain Sheridan has been captured. We want to thank Mr. Michael Garibaldi for being a hero to the people. You're like,
oh, that's tough.
He didn't even know.
Yeah. Well, and now the most important thing is Bester says, you know what, Garibaldi, I'm not a a bad guy. I'll let you live. I'll let you be yourself again.
Yeah.
Which doesn't feel like the most prudent thing for Bester to do.
Nope.
No. But
what will Garibaldi know
is
when
what
he
it
gets
is.
out, you know?
Everything. He's
No.
like, you'll remember it all.
So then, yeah, why are you letting him go? What's your...
Because he's, he's cocky. And
Yeah. It's like, you can't
I
stop
guess
me now,
kinda
because he
likes
already killed
Garibaldi.
Edgar's. He already stopped the plot that he was worried about.
Right.
That's
And I
why
guess he's not worried about Garibaldi, like, joining up with the crew again. Because
Right.
they hate him.
Because all he cared about was preventing the second Holocaust, and he did.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, nothing you can do now will worry me anymore, which is incorrect. But I'm excited to see Garibaldi back to normal and helping out the crew and regaining the trust of the crew. So much of Babylon 5 is like there's a very small percentage of it is like an actual status quo, and then the rest of it is, geez, I really goofed up, guys. Can anyone forgive me? Am I ever going to be forgiven? Like, for multiple characters on the series.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Londo and Garibaldi and...
Right. It's attempting to return to a status quo that never truly existed.
Yeah.
Isn't that life, though, also? Oh, shucks.
Oh, shucks.
Do you have any stray notes for this ep?
No, I think we about covered it.
Fabulous. Yeah, this is a really great one. Shout-outs to Season 4 of Babylon 5 for just being a knockout.
For just
honestly.
being awesome.
It rules, it shreds, and more people should watch this show, to be honest.
I can't wait for Season 5 to be bad.
Me too, honestly. Like, what the fuck is it? I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
Let's send it over to you for some emails.
Did you get through? Is it true?
You've got the captain all right. It was a setup, and Garibaldi was behind the whole thing.
I just heard he's tried to contact Babylon 5.
You tell Corwin to refuse his signals. There's nothing that he has to say to me right now that I have the slightest interest in hearing. And you tell them that if he turns up on the station, I want that son of a bitch shot on sight.
Susan.
All right, it's emails time. Just so you know, folks, this is Magellan flying solo. Alan is flying also, but not solo, with his family to France today. Actually, yesterday when you're listening to this. So I'm going to be handling things while he's gone. No wild parties, he said. Okay. So you guys will all come over tonight. We'll break some vases, and it'll be great. And then, we'll make a movie about it that's not good, but for some reason, people always talk about it, and it's called Risky Business, and I don't like that movie. Anyway, let's get to it. So we've got a few things to catch up on here in the old emails. First, we have an email from Nick. We actually have a few from Nick, so I'll read a couple of those. This one is entitled Story Origin. Nick says, just an FYI, I wrote the Kefir scene, which we read a couple episodes ago, I think, at this point. And he says, you guys played it great, by the way. Oh, thank you. Alan Zathras was very good. Mostly as a result of Alan looking forward to the Warren Kefir story and describing both him and Zathras as useless characters. It seemed fitting to find an excuse to get them together. And it's not exactly to say Warren Kefir is more important, just that the only good thing he ever did was die and get out of the way for Zack time. And then Nick shares a sentiment that we have, which is, please, Dan, come back. I'm only partially good at stupid jokes and trivia. I do not have your skills for an in-depth and thoughtful analysis of B5. Luckily, I do have a Dan mail to read after this. Nick finishes by saying, I've switched things up now, and I've started your Freak Chats episodes, or as I like to think of them, as the Equalizer episodes, as I can hear you guys see parallels to your high school experience, and I suddenly feel a little less old. And that's from Nick. For a second, I thought he was calling them the Equalizer episodes because our EQ was bad or something, but I'm glad that that's not the case. I don't know why my brain always goes to thinking that I'm being criticized. That's something that I need to work on. Our next email is the Dan mail from, if I'm doing my brain right, the episodes that we covered 2 Chatzylon 5s ago. He's talking about rumors, bargains, and lies, and moments of transition. Dan says, it's possible that this is completely in my imagination, but haven't you guys talked about Rebo and Zudi and their casting before? I know you may feel like you've spoiled yourselves, but rest assured, their eventual appearance is probably the least interesting thing in a bonkers episode. It is written by Neil Gaiman and is, therefore, quite bananas. I think we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we get there. He continues, I think that the Minbari Civil War is where I really feel the season 4 pinch. The conflict is basically presented and resolved in the span of 4 episodes. Even, you could argue that really only 2 of those are substantially dealing with that plot. So I agree. I think that probably would have been a story that would have gotten more breathing room if JMS was certain that he was going to get a season 5. Let's see. Dan says, when has the show ever handled something that big in such a small amount of time? Sure, there were subtle hints that something was building up, but that's not quite the same thing as being in a full-blown civil war. I think that the Minbari got shortchanged here, and Delenn got shortchanged in particular, but I do really appreciate her choice to elevate the worker cast in the way she did. It was that scene I was thinking about way back when you were watching season 1, and you learned that there was a religious cast and a warrior cast, and I was quick to jump in and say, quote, she didn't mention it, but there's a worker cast too. I've always been confused with Sheridan's handling of Lita during this part of the series. Considering that he's about to go after Earth and by extension Psycor, you'd think that Lita would be the most powerful ally he could hope for. She would be insanely useful in all the types of work that he's doing. You'd think that her help would be worth him keeping her in her quarters and giving her a livable wage. I get that B5 is feeling the financial pinch, but is this really where Sheridan should draw the line? At the very least, he risks making an enemy out of someone who'd make a better friend. Not to mention the hypocrisy of this move, considering that, I forgot about this, just 2 seasons ago, Sheridan used a Sinclair-like loophole to keep him and Ivanova in bigger quarters when Earth Force tried to move them to smaller ones. And that's from Dan. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Those are the plots we used to have, right? They're like, how do I keep the big dorm room, my big single, instead of getting a roommate? Lita does eventually become more important in the plan later, but yeah, it is weird that he doesn't just tell her what's going on. It feels at the back end of this season that Sheridan's being cagey with like his closest allies for no discernible reason. Anyway, that's from Dan. We hope to see more from you, Dan. Please send us more things because you are good at those. But also good at those. Nick has a couple more here that I'm going to read off. One is a quick one titled Missing Dog and Cat. Nick says, the client that was talking with Garibaldi was played by Dilbert creator Scott Adams. Kind of a crazy version of himself worried about his own comic creations. Though Adams nowadays is a much more far-right character, it's more cringy as a result rewatching it. Imagine being on the set with Scott Adams and, oh God, Garibaldi. Oh my God, his name. If Alan was here, he would know it, and he would have saved me. But I don't remember his name. So that's it. That's all that I can do. I'm gonna look it up right now, and you're gonna listen to me looking it up. Michael Garibaldi, actor. Jerry Doyle. Yep, Alan would have known that. I miss him. And then Nick says, with regards to the episodes that we covered last week, first off, new alternate title for season 6 of Chatz, Veggies Before Steaks. Yeah, pearls before swine, but veggies, I guess that's a different thing. Let's see, Nick says, secondly, I feel the question of Lita doing stuff to people only with permission is best paralleled to a search warrant. Most times you need one, but likely plenty of exceptions exist to get around that without doing the evil label. Is the person in a coma and can't give consent? Maybe that's allowed for a good reason. Is the person about to hurt themselves or others? Seems okay to stop them without permanent harm. I haven't read a lot of the B5 books, but did finish the Psycor Bester trilogy years ago. And without spoiling anything, I think it did a great job of explaining the origins of the Corps and Bester early and later in life. For your information, the actor playing, he said FYI, it sounds a lot more aggressive if you're right. For your information, FYI, the actor playing William Edgars also did the voice of Alfred Pennyworth on the Batman animated series in the 90s. I knew I recognized his voice. And then Nick closes out by saying, I've played a few B5 card games against Pat, including as the Psycor faction. He can attest to the threat the telepaths present, at least in frustration. B5 card games. Send that. I would love to know what that is, because I'm sort of back in my board game enthusiasm zone. I don't know how to say that. I've been like looking for cool board games and card games lately, so send that along, and maybe Alan and I will play it and let you know what we thought when he comes back to me from his trip. So that's it for this time around. Please send some emails along. And again, the next one or two of these are going to be me. So if we want to do some Cats Away, Mice Will Play stuff, I am game for whatever. And that's that. Now back to the Chats kids with the rest of the show.
This is really excellent corned beef. You have to get just the right mustard. The brown with the seeds, not the yellow kind. And not too much of it. If there's too much, it irritates the corners of my mouth.
Welcome back to Chatzylon 5. The second episode we watched this week was Season 4, Episode 18, Intersections in Real Time. It was written by J. May Say, Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail? It was directed by John LaFia. It aired June 16, 1997, and it takes place October 23rd, 2261. Alan, what happened in this episode at the twilight? Blah, blah. What happened in this episode?
That was great.
Thanks.
In this episode, Sheridan is ruthlessly interrogated by Earth Alliance. Done. That's it. That's it.
That's all that happens. We don't go anywhere else or do anything else.
Nope. I texted Magellan in the very first minute of this episode being like, wouldn't it be really cool if they only showed Sheridan being interrogated and nothing else? And you were like, it is cool. They did it.
Yeah, it turns out very good. Very good work.
Oh, man. This is one of those episodes I'm going to remember for a minute because they've done like interrogation episodes before. We've done like locked room episodes before, even on Babylon 5. And I love them all the time. There was the other interrogation with, what's his face? Jack the Ripper, which was really good.
Yeah.
But that was on B5. I think what works about this one is that it is so tight and personal, and you are only getting this interrogator and John Sheridan. And I don't even think there's any like flashback work. It's all just in the present.
All just in the room, yeah.
43 minutes straight of this torture scene. Torture, interrogation, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of a mixture of everything.
Yeah. And the difference
strong.
Between this and the Jack the Ripper interrogation is that on some level we understood that things were going to be okay with the Jack the Ripper one. We had started to suspect that the Vorlons something was wrong with them. They were suspicious, but we still had some basic faith in the idea that like, okay, they're trying to form an army of light. They're trying to do the right thing. And maybe we don't agree with their methods, but ultimately what they're doing is they're trying to assess if Sheridan is like worthy of the task, and we know that he is. So this will probably turn out fine. This, I don't have that same faith that everything's going to be okay.
Right. I had read some trivia right before we started recording that JMS wanted to end the season on this episode.
That would have been rough. Oh
my
God.
And I can already tell things are going to stay rough, but like I can't even fathom a rescue situation. I mean, he's going to get rescued. Like we know how this works plot-wise for the show to continue, but like the end of this episode kind of posits that like, no, we could just keep Sheridan here, and the show could be like, and then the resistance fell apart, and then somebody else took over,
Yeah. Right.
And Sheridan never made it out. The last time we see people from the outside world is the episode starts with him remembering the betrayal of his former friend, Michael Garibaldi, with some really beautiful string music playing. And then basically once he's sat down, he's introduced to the interrogator who, I looked up on the wiki, his name is William. But the episode never calls him anything. He's just the man or the interrogator.
Yeah.
And he starts off with a sort of whole situation about truth and how truth is subjective. And he tells Sheridan, good afternoon or good evening. And Sheridan's like, it's more.
Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah.
He says good evening, and then Sheridan's like, it's morning or whatever. It has to be evening because I saw daylight earlier, and it can't be that. And he's like, oh, cool. And then he opens the door. He's like, oh, you meant that daylight? And he just flips the switch, and the light turns off. He's like, yeah, day is nothing. Night is nothing.
Yeah.
You don't know what time it is.
Yeah.
I got this deli sandwich. And I have all your files. I had mentioned that he has all the essentials of a good interrogator. He's got fake truth. He's got a bunch of files. He's got a cool bald head. And he's got a deli sandwich, which is like, that's kind of all you need. I love that the sandwich is also used not just as a prop, but like as a manipulation tool and as a like kind of way of asserting control. Because he starts eating it and he's talking about how like, oh, Sheridan, you haven't eaten in 2 days. Isn't this corned beef sandwich amazing? Don't you want it? Isn't it lunchtime? If this was breakfast, you'd ruin your stomach. That would hurt so much. Don't do that.
Your poor tummy would be all sour.
But if you ate it for lunch, then like, wow, good sandwich. Wow, it's so filling and yummy. So it's lunch, isn't it, Sheridan? And he's like making Sheridan tell the truth. I think the only like incongruous element of this plot is that Sheridan falls for everything this guy says.
Yeah, I mean, he's under like intense stress and pressure. Like they're starving him, they're making him shit himself all night. They're not giving him water. Like you can see him doing the calculations of, okay, if I give in, then he's not going to shock me, but I'm also not like giving him something. You can see him pausing and taking the time to make those decisions. And ultimately on the most important stuff, Sheridan doesn't budge.
He doesn't budge an inch, correct. So he offers the sandwich because it's lunchtime and Sheridan hasn't eaten in 2 days. He eats the sandwich, and then he's like, by the way, this is where I kind of got the idea of the character of this interrogator just being like, he doesn't actually work for the government. He's like, Sheridan, eat this sandwich. You're hungry. I know you're hungry. It's a delicious corned beef sandwich. Why would I ever lie to you? 5 minutes later, Sheridan, that sandwich had poison in it, and you're gonna die. And I put it in there, and you fell for it. So, I mean, sorry, but I'm not sorry. Like, deal with it. You know? It's very funny because this is all about truth and about like, what do you choose to believe, and like, why do you follow your own rules? What is your moral compass? I think that's the ultimate thing for me that works the best about William, the interrogator, is he is not in himself a bad person.
Well, I mean,
do you think morally he is? I mean, he's working for the government, so like he made a choice, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about him is that he's telling Sheridan he'll never lie to him, but he is misleading Sheridan or like letting him believe things that are not true. So
right, but
he doesn't lie to him about the sandwich, but he lets him believe that the sandwich is okay.
True.
And he lets Sheridan believe that the alien, the Drazi guy, is like not in on it when he is.
Right. Well, there's a difference between lying to Sheridan and being like sadistic about all of it. Because I
don't think that there's a moral. I don't think that this guy's like morally a good guy.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think it's more just that we're watching somebody do their job, you know? Like, this is just the thing that this interrogator does. It's like, I'm going to lie to you. You have to fall for this. If it doesn't work, here's what we do. We sub in the next guy. Like, I'm not going to, like, directly, like, put a knife in you or do anything, but, like, I'm the one who, like, pulls the lever and does the stuff. Like, yeah, he is a bad person and he's working for bad people and doing bad things, but, like, he is also just a cog in this machine.
Yeah, but it's sort of like you make the decision when you're in that machine of whether to be a cog or not. And, like, you don't get to be a sort of interrogator of John Sheridan unless you have worked your way up the ranks and proven that you are a loyal member of this machine. So I think it's, you know, we can't really excuse him as just like he's just doing his job, because he has clearly been doing his job for a long time and doesn't have qualms about like the things that he's saying, that truth is entirely subjective and like the only thing that matters is what you decide to believe, and like, you need to follow orders regardless of if you think that they are bad. I don't think that this guy is redeemable in any way.
So I think then that the more interesting question to ask about him and about the methods that he's using are like, what's their goal here? Because what he's ultimately telling Sheridan is like, I want you alive to go on camera and tell the entirety of Earth that you were being manipulated by aliens and that you committed these acts not of your own accord and that you were responsible at the same time for them. And then we're going to let you go and we're going to let you live around Earth. They're probably going to try to kill you, but like they're going to release you and make a big deal about releasing you because then people will know you and see your face and be like, oh, this is real. Then they'll have no reason to not believe us and our plan will have worked.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't necessarily go that way. But what's amazing is like this episode feels like it's waiting for the shoe to drop. It's waiting for somebody to swoop in and be like, I got you, Sheridan, you're free. And that is going to happen next week.
Yeah.
But it's so valuable that this episode ends with like this moment of like, yeah, Sheridan didn't get a victory here.
Yeah, he didn't even get to have the victory of lasting long enough for them to choose to kill him.
Exactly.
They're just
he was
not
like
gonna do that.
Right. And he didn't lead to somebody else dying. All of it's fake. Everything is simulated to him. Because so first William gives him like some saline because he's like, you haven't drank in a couple days. He's like, by the way, it's my pee. He doesn't actually say that, but I really wanted him to be like, I totally peed in that and you drank it and it's delicious.
Ha 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 ha.
Ha ha ha.
This
LOL.
is the height of the torture.
Yeah. Is that you drink my urine.
Stupid.
I had a coworker who was Irish who would say urine, and I love that pronunciation of that term. They brought the urine. This is the point where he's like, I need an attorney. I need a full military tribunal. And then they're like, we're the government, bud. You don't get to do that.
Why do you think we'll do that? You are rebelling against us and trying to overthrow us.
Yeah, like
we're not going to follow the rules.
It's the classic thing when someone like gets arrested and they're like, I want my rights read or I want an attorney. And it's like, yeah, when you're like a criminal, you totally get that. And that's a legal right. And it's great that you have that right. But like sedition doesn't have laws around that.
Well,
like,
also, like we're a fascist government.
Uh-huh.
You think we're going to give you the right to a fair and speedy trial? Not happening.
With an attorney of your choosing and a jury of your peers? Like, no, dude.
No, sorry. We are corrupt. We are evil.
And they control all the information here. They bring in a Drazi alien who claims that he worked with Sheridan. I love the moment where he goes, and another guy who's bad, Ross Fowler.
Yeah.
And then William's like, by the way, that guy's not real. That guy isn't a criminal. He just is annoying, and we want to like send him to the gallows. So like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that was
they can just throw people in. Sheridan thinks he's a badass and he tells the witness not to talk. He's like, you need to like keep your morals to the very end and don't ever let them go. Like the Drazi are an honorable people, which is so funny when you remember that the Drazi also fought over the color of their sashes.
Right.
He's like, they're good people. They have morals and principles. And it's like, yeah, they do about colors. The witness doesn't talk and Sheridan's like, man, I'm so great. I did it. I was like saying out loud, like, wouldn't it be cool if William just like pulled out a gun and shot him in the head right there?
Yeah, that's what I thought. They'd kill him in front of Sheridan, but what happened was way better.
Yeah,
which is that the Drazi guy was just part of it, and
right.
And the Drazi
part of it. Yeah, he's taken away to quote room 17. And you hear him go like screaming like he's being electrocuted or murdered. And it's like Sheridan's like, no, I don't even know the guy. Don't kill a stranger. That's so mean.
The guy portraying the Drazi does such a great job because when Sheridan convinces him, quote unquote, not to talk, there's this flash on his face of like satisfaction, which was weird in the moment. And I was like, what's going on there? This is suspicious. And it totally makes sense by episode's end that he kind of is breaking character a little bit and thinking, I got him to think that he's such a great guy. Yes, I did my job.
Yeah.
So I had some suspicions of that Drazi guy, but it was like just subtle enough that I wasn't entirely sure what was going on.
Right, because you can also just read that as like, I finally decided what to die for. Like, I have my principles now.
Right.
But he doesn't. He's taken away to the mysterious room 17. William is like, Sheridan, you have to sign away your honor right now, or else we're going to kill you. This is your last chance. It's in this moment that Sheridan sees a vision of Delenn behind the guy. Obviously, the like optimistic part of me hoped that was actually Delenn and that she was going to like conk him on the back of the head.
Yeah.
Or the trashy part of my brain thought that she was going to hold up a sign that says, America's not the greatest country in the world, but it could be. I wanted it so fucking badly, dude. I wanted it. I was like, please, just do this.
Oh, that's funny.
Do it for daddy.
That's so funny. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that vision of Delenn was planted there by a telepath?
Oh, by a telepath?
Yeah.
Very possible. I mean, if you want to just be fully bleak and assume that Sheridan has no hope and no true optimism here.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Then yes, totally. Because it's there twice.
I think that's what it was. I don't think that he was going crazy. I think that was intentionally like an image that they were using to manipulate him.
Right, because the other time they see it is when he's right before he gets wheeled into room 17. He sees her again at the door, and it's like, he's supposed to feel like, this is my like holy sacrifice, like this is so worth it. And they're like, no, dude, you're just going to another room. Like, what do you?
Right.
So he's like, no, screw you guys. I'm not giving you anything. He spits on the paper. He's wheeled away, taken to room 17. I love that he's read his last rites, like his Christian. It's like, yeah, they're fascist, but they're still Christian. They're still practicing that faith. He sees another vision of Delenn at the door, and I thought that this is where the episode was going to end. But then they just kind of twist the knife one more little time, just a little. He goes in, and it turns out room 17 is not a murder chamber, but in fact the same kind of room.
Just another room with another guy doing the same thing.
Do you have any allergies? Do you take any medication for your heart? And then the Drazi like pulls off his hood and is like, hi, I'm here too. I was working with them. How's it going? And it's just, he's in a loop. He just has to do it again. And he just like looks dejected and submits again to it.
Yeah.
So sad.
Super bleak.
I like that this is another guy too, but he kind of looks like William. Like he's still just like a crusty old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just trapped in a loop. It's in a way, in like a really wild way, this is a filler episode.
Yeah, in a sense, I suppose.
Because nothing progresses. It's more just like a literal interrogation of Sheridan and his morals and his values. I think the question that this episode like plays with, which is, do you decide your own truth and do you decide your own story, or is it decided for you, and who decides it for you, and what's like fair, and what's a way to do that is fantastic. And it's just nice to have that in this season that's already so much about like betrayal and false memories and stuff, to be like, yeah, and also maybe everything you're working for is fake because we decided it is. That's ultimately what they're kind of trying to get out of Sheridan too, is like, we want you to not believe your truth anymore. We want you to believe our truth.
Yeah, it definitely creeps me out the same way that reading 1984 creeped me out. When what's the main guy's name in 1984? It's like John also, or something, some stupid, or William, or I don't remember his name.
I think it's William. His name is Winston.
Winston, that's what it is. When Winston has the cage of rats on his face, it's like, oh my god. And then just the whole thing about getting him to admit that 2 + 2 is 5 felt very similar to the like, it's lunchtime. Just say it's lunchtime and you can have a sandwich. Just repeat our version of what is true or not true, and you can be content and happy, and you can live a quiet life. And eventually we'll murder you, but until then you'll be comfortable. And isn't that like good enough? Isn't that what you want? And I love this part where William, the interrogator, is saying, you decide the truth. Maybe there are some things that are true, but like matters of perception ultimately are things that you decide. Like, hey, you were, what was his name? Like Star Killer or something? Or like, what was his like creepy?
I think it was, because we joked that it was the Force Unleashed guy.
Yeah. Like, you were the guy who said the Minbari are the enemy, and you murdered a ton of them. and you said they're the bad guys. And then one day you decided, well, actually, I was wrong. They're good now. They're so good that my lady is a Minbari.
Mm-hmm.
And now Earth government is bad? What? You can't just pick and choose. Or you are just picking and choosing who the bad guys are. So
right.
You don't get to argue that there's like absolute truth. Because you yourself are a walking example of the fact that the truth is fluid and can change. And, you know, I think we respond to that and we can say that there are absolute truths about, like, who we should fight and who we shouldn't. And, like, the Minbari War is... people were operating under faulty information, and now we'd like to think that our heroes are better informed. But that certainly is a kind of, like, haunting way to present things. That if you're a soldier, one day somebody just says, these are the bad guys, go fight them. And you say, all right, sounds good, I will.
And that's exactly the thing that Sheridan has been fighting against these last couple episodes, is the training that him and all the other people in the Earth military received, which was like, when you receive, this is what the interrogator tells him, it's like, when you get orders from higher up is smarter than you. They know what's right. You do what's right. You don't question it. Even if you know it's wrong, you do it because they're better than you.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. It's logical. And he's been trying to tell people, like, no, like, you have your own moral compass. You're allowed to determine your own truth.
Right.
Because that's what he's been doing. So it's like directly countering what he does. I think from a greater metaphorical perspective, the idea that the government is like dictating truth to you. And again, this is like, we might as well be reviewing 1984, but if you get a house, you'll be happy. If you get married and have a stable job, you'll be happy. Like, these are lies that, like, the world and the systems tell us to keep us in the system.
Right.
Which is like exactly what is happening here.
Right.
You know, and that's the read. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Ultimately, what empowers fascism and authoritarianism is just people deciding that they will accept the government's version of what is true because it allows them to be comfortable. And that's something that we, in our present society, have to cope with, and it's only getting worse, right?
Exactly.
Is like, okay, this is the version of the world that the people in power want me to believe is true, and I can have a nice, quiet, easy life that is going to end horribly, but until then is peaceful. Or I can fight against that and stand up for something that I believe to be true, and then I'm going to be living a life of like discomfort and pain, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what's the measure of who I am as a person, and what am I going to do?
Yeah, what are the choices I make that at the end of the day, like when push comes to shove, that change me and change the world around me?
And the kind of sad reality of it that Sheridan is finding out is, like, even if you do fight against it, odds are, if you choose death, they still have the technology to, like, deep fake a video of you reading the statement, and they can still send it to everybody. And they can still say on ISN, like, you're being well fed and you are repudiating your alien masters. So, like, you're going to die in solitude, and your death might still not mean much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. It's and they talk about not only that, but like when the Drazi's speaking to him and he like interrupts the Drazi to speak, he's like, don't worry, try not to talk. We're going to edit out everything you say anyways.
Yeah.
This is all being filmed. Nothing you say matters. Is brilliant, and stuff like that is what makes this show so strong, is like they are coming up with an idea and a theme and like taking it to its natural conclusion. They're not backing away from that stuff like so many shows do.
Yeah.
They're just doing it, which is fantastic. There's a lot of really great JMS quotes and stuff from this.
Oh, sure, yeah. Let me know.
From the Lurker's Guide page on this one. I usually, whenever we get to like the really good episodes, I check the Lurker's Guide just because he tends to have really good sort of like musings about his own work. One of the first comedic one was Bruce Boxleitner's beard real? He said Bruce had some time between episodes and began to grow the beard for real, and we darkened it for later acts of the episode. Obviously claiming that they didn't just rip off the prisoner, even though this like type of thing is totally in that show. My favorite is the fact that the Drazi prisoner Do you know who that actor is?
It's whoever's been playing the Drazi, right? But I don't remember who that is. Oh, it's a different person?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's every Drazi, but it's also Wayne Alexander, who was the Inquisitor from Comes the Inquisitor.
Oh, okay. So it is the guy who was playing Jack the Ripper?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a fun little, like, oh yeah, that was the same guy. So some people were like, was that really the Drazi, or was that supposed to be Jack again? And he's like, no, it's the Drazi. Like, when you put makeup on someone, they are the character. They're not. I'm not doing a big brain play here.
Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense for it to be Jack the Ripper.
And then someone asked him, what was the message of this episode? And I like this quote a lot. The message is just that we all have to choose to resist from time to time, and that one individual can fight the system, and we are all that individual at one time or another. Which is great. Thanks, JMS.
Yeah, but the ending does not.
But he still resists. He still tries to.
That's true. That's true.
The bleak thing is that he resists to no success in this episode, but he doesn't give them anything. Like, he never did. He succeeded in not giving them
if all
anything.
they can do is start it over, like, if you did it once, you can do it again.
So maybe by like the 4th or 5th loop, he's just like, I'm tired. I don't feel like lying anymore. And that's maybe part of their plan.
Yeah.
I wonder how many loops in it's going to be before he's rescued. Because, like,
I don't know.
This is December. Wait, no, this is not 2259. I'm looking at the Inquisitor episode. This is October 23rd, 2261. This is the course of one day, obviously.
This all happens in one day?
According to the...
I had that suspicion. I wondered.
Yeah, so when they're like, good morning, good evening, they're just...
It's just one day.
They're just BSing him. Nothing's real.
Yeah.
The next episode is the 27th, so he must have been in there for at least 4 days.
Wow.
So who knows how many loops he could have managed in 4 days.
Yeah. Yikes.
But we're going to get there. We still have 4 episodes left in season 4 of Babylon 5. And Majan, I'd like it if you could tell me which ones we're watching next week.
I will. Now, this is the part where our listeners are telling us not to read Amazon summaries anymore.
Yay!
Because they're spoiler town. So do you actually want to... I'll tell you the episodes, and you read the non-spoiler summaries?
Sounds like a plan, Stan.
Okay. So next week we're watching 2 more episodes of Babylon 5. It'll be our penultimate discussion of season 4 episodes, and then our recap after that. It's pretty exciting. It's going by so fast.
It really is flying. I've had so much fun with this season.
Yeah. Let's see. So first we're watching season 4, episode 19, which is entitled Between the Darkness and the Light. So what happens in that one?
Garibaldi is captured by the Mars Resistance, and Ivanova engages ships of past horror, which is exciting.
Ivanova engages ships of past horror?
Yeah, of past horrors. Like some like bad stuff from the past comes back.
I don't know what that could mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're watching season 4, episode 20, Endgame.
Sheridan's forces make their final strike. Ooh, that's definitive.
Cool.
Ooh, that's definitive, baby. Yeah, so next week's exciting for a couple reasons. 1, those episodes sound fire. And 2, for our discussion of Between the Darkness and the Light, we're going to be having a guest on.
Yay.
Very excited to have guests on. This one was requested a long time ago, so this person clearly has a fondness for that episode, and it's probably good because we're in the back half of an amazing season of TV.
And this is a good time to remind people that being a guest on this show is as easy as sending us an email saying, hey, could I be a guest on this episode? And us saying, yes, you can. We generally say no to season and series finales, but otherwise, totally open season. You can come and talk to us for any episode that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important to us, that if you feel like being on the show, it's as much your show as it is ours.
Indeed, and that's not even relegated to like patrons or anything. I think this person is a patron, but you don't have to be to guest. You can just be a human. Speaking of emailing us, if you'd like to do so, if we'll take it to the plugs then for a moment.
Let's do it.
Chatspod@gmail.com is our email address. That's chatzpod@gmail.com. At Chatspod on Twitter is also where you can get at us if you use Twitter. You can rate us on iTunes if you love the show and you want to help us get the name out there. And if you'd like to support us financially, we have a whole wealth of content over on our Patreon, patreon.com/chatspod. Where at a maximum of $5 a month, you'll get all sorts of delicious content. We got pilot chats where we talk about which show to watch next for chats, and we pilot different TV shows. We have a lot of good episodes coming out soon for that.
By the way, all that delicious content, it has the brown mustard with like just a little bit of pepper in it.
Just a teensy bit of pepper. It's delicious. It's so good.
Too much of it irritates the sides of my mouth, but just a little bit. It's just right.
$3 a month gets you Chats Nights, where we hang out every 2 weeks and we just kind of talk about stuff. We've been having fun there. And $1 a month gets you Commentary Chats, where you can listen to us watch a movie with you once a month. So we have a lot of great stuff over there.
Yeah.
And Majeld, what is your Chatsum for this week?
Oh man, my Chatsum for this time around. Recently, J. Michael Straczynski put out his autobiography or memoir. Or I don't really know. Does he call it a memoir?
I'm not sure what he calls it.
Well, it's the
I don't know what
story.
the
Story of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I think memoir, maybe is a little more kind of like artsy and like. This is probably more of an autobiography because it's just like the straight. Here's this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Anyway, it is the story of his life. It's called Becoming Superman. And both Alan and I got it on audiobook through Audible, but you could also get it audiobook somewhere else probably, or just get the book. But the reason that we wanted to get the audiobook is because it is narrated by Peter Jurasik. By the way, it's pronounced Jurasik and not Jurassic.
We learned through this audiobook, finally.
Yeah, he pronounces his own name for us. And boy, oh man, JMS has had a life, my friend.
It's true.
It's a lot. And he tells it with such grace and vulnerability. And I really, really recommend that people check it out. Just to sort of understand who he is and where he's coming from. And if you didn't already have tons of respect for the guy for like being a workhorse and for creating some truly amazing content, you'll have even more respect for him for going through the life that he's had and coming out as just like an incredible dude.
Yeah, it explains a lot about Babylon 5 and like how the show feels. That one of its like key architects came from such a difficult life and has like remained optimistic about a lot of things despite so much struggle. The full title, in fact, is Becoming Superman: My Journey from Poverty to Hollywood. So like it goes there. Yeah. 100%.
So I recommend. And the audiobook is really Peter Jurasik does a great job.
Yeah. You're not gonna get him doing a Londo impression except for the very beginning where he totally does a Mr. Garibaldi. Yeah. So you can't ask for anything better. I think we were told about that by an emailer, but yeah, you gotta hear it. It's very good. Intro by Neil Gaiman, which is like kind of cute, and then Peter Jurasik's just a dude from New York. He's just like, hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Peter Jurasik. He's not like, you forget that Londo's a voice sometimes. But yeah, check that out. I love that, and I'm actually since I'm traveling soon after we're recording this, I'm gonna be diving into that on the plane.
Yeah, and maybe we'll try to have a Nights.
Yeah, we might Nights the whole thing
or something,
or part of it or whatever. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
What about you? What's your Chatsum for this week?
So I am bringing back a non-traditional Chatsum this week. Oh, by the way, I did Google memoir versus autobiography just to educate ourselves. It looks like the way it's understood is that an autobiography covers someone's entire life, and a memoir only has to cover a specific aspect of their life.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is probably more of an autobiography.
Autobiography, yeah. It's covering a whole lot. My Chatsum for this week is to go to your local library.
Yes, that's a great one.
Yeah. I have had a lot of free time recently, so I've been trying to like figure out what to do with myself and my hobbies and what I can do to like feel productive day to day or just to feel like I've accomplished something. And so I went to my local library. I brought just my like iPad and my little iPad keyboard, and even our like local library, which is like so much smaller than I remember when I was younger. I don't know if I've gone bigger or what, but it's like 3 floors. One of them you don't even use, and the other 2 are like there's a printer and there's a bunch of tables.
Yeah, I remember it as being huge. I'm sure.
Exactly. I went in and I was like, oh, that was the whole library, and none of these floors are big. Wow.
Yeah.
but it has a private like reading space, and I just was in there, and I brought some headphones too, and I just started writing, and it was beautiful. Like I've never, when I try to write here at my desk at home, I always have, you have distractions, you have people coming in and out, you have different technology trying to alert you about the world outside. But it's like effortless to just go to your library and turn it off, because those are free spaces too. Like,
yeah, you don't have to buy a coffee, you don't have to
exactly. Like I had been thinking about doing the same thing at my local Starbucks, and then I was like, I already like drink coffee in the morning, I don't want to have to go to a Starbucks and get another one. But yeah, you go to a library and no one's going to bother you. You don't have a time limit until they close, and you can just get work done or just relax and just be in a quiet space for a while. It's very nice. Support your local library, get a library card. The cool 2019 thing about being a member of your local library is that you can like get access to their entire online database for free. So like all their books and audiobooks that are digital, you can just have those.
Yeah. It's a great way to watch
really
TV and movies also.
Check out your local library. That's my Chatzylon for this week. And that is going to do it for this episode of Chatzylon 5. Peace.